what about your family?
So my mom became Catholic. My mom was already binge watching The Journey Home.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would always go over to her house and she'd have A Journey Home playing while she's cooking dinner, and praying the rosary. So she was very interested in Catholicism. And I, in my 20s, I remember thinking, Mom, you should be a Catholic. You would be such a good Catholic. And so I was kind of projecting my desire to become Catholic onto my mother, which is true, though. She is and would be a very good Catholic. But I thought, she also has the kind of more conservative beliefs that fit with Catholicism, whereas I don't, so I can't be Catholic. For me, it was very much like, no women's ordination, no way. That was the litmus test for any sort of viable denomination for me during my 20s. So if you don't ordain women, no way. So that was a big thing. And so after I became Catholic, I think one of the things that's interesting about, or I guess unique about my story, is that the real tumultuous conversion happened after I joined the church, about a year after. So I joined the church and about 2 weeks later became pregnant, which is, let's make a joke about Catholic fertility here, I guess. But it was not planned, and I had been trying to learn NFP, but it was in this very difficult postpartum phase, and so it was not what I intended. And it made me I was angry. I was angry at the church. I remember thinking, oh, those priests, those bishops with their fancy little hats, making rules for us women, and they don't know what it's like. They've never lactated. It's really hard to do NFP. And so I became Catholic.
I remember how hard NFP was. I got tennis elbow from shaking those thermometers back in those days.
Yeah, so I became Catholic, became pregnant, and even though I, in practice, was following the church's teaching, I still very much had a contraceptive mindset, right? So I had not yet, because I didn't understand it still, did not yet fully understand the Catholic worldview when it came to sexuality. And that was where my biggest hang-ups still were. And so for a while there, this was only a few months after I became Catholic, but I wasn't going to Mass at all because I just had this hard resentment, this anger about what was happening. And of course, this pregnancy was perfectly timed, because for one thing, the pressure of NFP was lifted because, that's the nice thing about being pregnant. You don't have to worry about getting pregnant. And I had a lot of time then to actually read the theology without this sort of pressure. So I began to read theology of the body. I went to confession about my resentment, and the priest actually told me, well, if you've really thought about it and your conscience tells you, you can use contraception, it's fine. And I remember thinking, that was not what I expected him to say, but instead of feeling glad about it, I was irritated because I knew he was wrong. Because my good friend Stephen had explained the church's teachings on contraception to me. And so when the priest said this to me, I was actually frustrated because I thought, no, actually you're wrong. But that was really helpful for me because I began to, it showed to me that I was beginning to already change my mind about these things. So during that pregnancy, I began to do an intellectual deep dive on these issues. And then when my daughter was born, she was born in Lent, and that Lent became a time of great spiritual transformation where I finally surrendered my heart to God in a way that I hadn't before.
I'm sure our audience has heard the theology of the body many times, and maybe it's hard to condense that very quickly. But in what way did John Paul's theology of the body awaken you to the Catholic teaching on life issues?
So the entire picture of the body as a sacrament of the person, and that there are these sacred, divine, sacramental realities that are actually written on the body themselves. Our bodies are living icons. That was the answer to the question I'd always been chasing. What is the significance, the meaning of being a woman? It was in reading Theology of the Body that I finally had that question answered. To be a woman is to be a living icon of the the body of Christ, of human beings, and the receptivity of human beings to God, and the life that comes from that receptivity. And so realizing that completely changed my heart.
Did it help cut through the hermeneutic of suspicion?
What helped cut through the hermeneutic of suspicion actually was learning to pray. And there was a prayer from a homily by Cardinal John Henry Newman that I randomly came across in some of my readings. But part of that prayer is, I sacrifice to thee this cherished wish, this lust, this weakness, this opinion, this scheme. I will be what thou wouldst make me and all that thou wouldst make me. And I began to pray that prayer by candlelight at night on my knees. And that taught me that the fundamental posture of the spiritual life has to be one of surrender. And that's the opposite of suspicion. So by embracing suspicion, I had paralyzed myself spiritually. I had made myself incapable of surrender. So it was learning to surrender and experiencing then a union with Christ and his mother that I'd never experienced or never thought possible. That's when my conversion really happened.
I got to tell you something amazes me. As I'm listening to your story, I had a question I was going to wait and answer because it just seemed like this is the question I wanted to answer. And that is, I was going to ask, at what point in your journey did you pray? Mm-hmm. Because Scripture says God honors and listens and responds to the prayers.
Yep.
And I was wondering, when were you praying? When did you pray? And that's what you said.
Yep. And it was right after, it was in that Lent right after my daughter was born. And that's the thing, like all of the births of my children have been such integral parts of my conversion because childbirth breaks you open in a way to love. And that's what was happening to me. And you're exactly right. It's when I really started to pray, and not pray in a way where you sort of say, oh, hey God, here's the things I want, you know. I don't think I'd ever really been taught how to pray in terms of prayer as an attitude of the heart, this kind of surge of the heart toward God. And it was when I began to do that. And there were these small prayers. You know, another one was from the gospel, the story of Bartimaeus, the blind man, where he calls out to God, or to Jesus as he's walking by, you know, Lord Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Master, I want to see. That line, Master, I want to see, became this one-line prayer that I prayed over and over. And that's when I began to see what the Catholic cosmos is really like. And that's what changed my heart, not just my mind, but my heart on all of these issues that I had been hesitating on. Now, it's not only that, like, I've been convinced, sure, that, you know, women shouldn't be ordained. It's a teaching that I love and will defend because it's tied to that very sacramental reality I was talking about. And if someone wants to throw away that whole sacramental reality just, you know, to satisfy some egalitarian urge, you know, I would defend that sacramental reality against any feminist argument.